Who is your favorite planeswalker of all time? Ladies and gentle mages, civilians across the multiverse, welcome back to another episode with Mana Man, and today we have a juicer for you. We are going to be ranking the top 10 blue cards in Magic Arena for Standard. Let's get right into it. Kicking off the list at number 10, we're going to go straight into March of Swirling Mist, baby. That is right. I absolutely adore March of Swirling Mist. This card is so awesome because it can be used as like offense and defense. If you need something to phase out, you can pretty much have like a de facto, slip out the back without the 1/1 counter, or you can use it to phase out your opponent. Like if your opponent has, some crazy flyers or a big board established, you can actually just use this to push for game after you have all of your like scary blue creatures. So I see a lot of blue cards, or blue decks rather, that don't use this card, and I think that is overall a mistake. Number 9 is an easy pick for me. I'm gonna go straight for Larion Terror. This thing is absolutely awesome. It's not even a rare or a mythic, so like anytime you have this big whopping scary big body ward 2, literally it's a ward 2, but other than that it'd be like kind of a vanilla after you can reduce its cost. The inner Timmy just comes like right out of me. I can't even like get over it. By the time you're like ready to play this thing, obviously you're probably casting it for like 1 to 3 by the time you're actually hard casting it, and it just goes along so well in mono blue, especially because we have all those instant and sorceries fill in the graveyard, and you gotta love it. Obviously not a counter spell, but other than a counter spell, it's like the only non-rare, non-mythic that is like really like meta worthy. So absolutely love this big old boy. Number 8 is going to be a rather boring card, but you have to put it on the list just because it's so good. It's going to be Consider. Consider the following. Consider putting Consider in your top 10 because there's a reason everything runs this in 4-ofs. It's like it does more than just fix your hand. Obviously you can dump something into the graveyard. Now a lot of times, maybe you needed that terror. That terror just needs to be like, downcasted just by 1, reduces cost. Whatever you need. There's also something else. I won't get ahead of myself, but Consider lets you set up with something else. But overall, it's just a very versatile card. It's not the most sexy Bezazzle, but it's not a Bezazzle card. It's just not a crazy card, but it has to make the list because it's good for consistency. It's good for just fixing your hand. It can even dump some stuff into the graveyard that you kind of need for, again, we'll get into that. Number 7 was actually a card I wasn't in love with when I first played with it, but I have got to give it up. Thirst for Discovery, and I am very, very thirsty. As you can tell, I got some water here, and it just makes sense because this card is very, very good. Again, we're going to get into why this could be even a little bit better than just costing 3, draw 3, and then discard either a basic land. But a lot of times you don't really need that land, so it's, again, you're either filling your graveyard for, again, that Larion Terror or other types of things, but I really like the Thirst for Discovery because especially in the mirror match, you're going to need a little something to give you that edge, and this card advantage can really put you over the top here. Because there's also, discard is obviously not as prevalent because of Meathook Massacre going away, but that card advantage that you can get for relatively cheap is it just goes a long way, and I wasn't really a big fan of it until I started playing with it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is probably pretty good. So it's going to make a fine number 7 on the list. Number 6 is going to be a card I don't see in every mono blue type of deck. I don't know why. I am firmly, I guess I'm being bold here, Ledger Shredder. This thing is shredding lives. It's shredding everything in sight. I don't know why people do not run this card. I was kind of alluding to Consider because like when you use Consider, it can really help fill in those blanks to really let you connive. And again, I just don't really know why Ledger Shredder is not used. It's so good. It adds presence to the board because you have, other cards. We can't spoil the fun yet, but Ledger Shredder is amongst some bodies that you actually need in the deck to actually win. Like you can't just win with no creatures on the board, and this is one amongst many. So to omit this just makes no sense to me. It gets big. You have plenty of cheap protection spells in this type of deck, so I have no idea why people are not running Ledger Shredder. I don't know. I've been running Ledger Shredder and it's been wondrous for me. I think it's this high, and I think it even might even be too low because it really is really a good card. It's so underrated. I don't know. In this meta, I just think you need to be running it. Getting into our top 5 here, I'm going to put it in there. We have Slip Out the Back. We are slipping out the back with the top hat. You gotta love this card. Again, it's kind of the same reasons of March of Swirling Mist of why it's so good, because Not only do you get to protect your creatures, you also get that +1/+1 counter, and I'm telling you, that counter can just really be the difference of things here. So slip out the back, I really like it, and again, you can also use it with Marcha Swirling Mist for offensive purposes to phase out your opponent's creature and push for game. A lot of times, this is why I have the Ledger Shredder up so high too, is I'm finding myself, I'm really pushing for games a lot with the Marcha Swirling Mist, and just phasing out in general with Slip Out the Back. So for that reason, I think Slip Out the Back is just so versatile. It protects your creatures, it makes them bigger, and you can push for game by phasing your opponent's creatures out. So I mean, what else is there not to like other than that top hat? Number 4 is an easy pick, and we're going to make disappear, baby. If you use this on your opponents, on your friends, it's going to make them disappear. They're not going to want to play with you because this card, ooh, it makes me want to gnash my teeth from frustration. That is how good this card is. Absolutely love it. And you know, it's so good because like Essence Scatter, you know, is only creatures, you know, Spell Pierce, non-creatures only, blah blah blah. This takes out anything you need. It just gets rid of it. I know that you can, you know, get by it by costing 2, but we are a tempo deck. When you play mono blue, especially right now, it's tempo, tempo, tempo. You're not gonna have 2, okay? I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's usually life or death. You have to get this card to resolve. You're not going to. We're making it disappear, baby. And you know, it doesn't come up a whole lot, but you can use the casualty cost. It's not totally dead. It comes off maybe a little bit more than I would have expected. But then you sacrifice your creature, you usually have a flyer or something, and you can usually swing in for lethal. But by sacrificing one of them, it doesn't really matter. You get rid of it, they can't pay for it, and it's nighty night. They're disappear forever. Ooh, baby, we are in the top 3, and kicking off with the top 3, we're gonna put it's Fading Hope. Kind of like consider it's not like the most sexy card, but this card has been around. It seems like this card has been around forever. It's just so good, man. In every sort of deck you could ever want. Mostly tempo, some type of like Kraken control. It was really popular, but I mean, overall tempo is really where it makes its bread and butter, because not only do you get to bounce something, you can protect your own creatures, you can like push for game, again, that kind of sort of thing. But the scry really puts this card over the top, and that is why this card will be kind of like a it'll stand the test of time, whether it's this format, last format, whatever, because Fading Hope fades all your opponent's hope away from winning. Number 2, we're getting close, baby. It is going to have to be the Delver of Secrets. You already know it's coming here. This thing is so good. I mean, listen, this is a tempo deck. At the end of the day, you're needing to put on damage against your opponent. What else are you going to do by having a 3/2 flyer on turn 1? A 1-drop that costs 3. I mean, it stands the test of time. I mean, whatever format you want, standard, like, I mean, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Delver of Secrets is there to pester your opponent, and it's kind of crazy that, you know, you could easily make this number 1. I'm going to make number 1 something else. I think you probably have an idea by now, and I'm going to talk about why I think that's a little bit better, but Delver of Secrets, absolute classic card. This card will stand the test of time, and it is absolutely worthy of either the 1 or 2 spot, but let's go ahead and get into that number 1. Before we get into number 1, let's go ahead and go for our honorable mentions. First off, I've got Shore, because Surely is something that costs 1, untapped, so you can do some positive combat stuff, and has cheap protection. I mean, all in one, really good card. I almost put it in the list, but again, we only have 10 spots here, so it's kind of hard. And then next we have Impulse. Now, this card was really cool when I first saw it. I ended up just kind of taking it out. I mean, it is really consistent and adds consistency, but it just lacks upside, I suppose, in this sort of deck. It's more like a control build, not really a tempo thing, but it is a really cool card. So let's go ahead. If you have not subscribed to the channel already, go ahead and do that, and let's get into number 1. Number 1 is none other than that you already knew was coming. It's the naughtiest, haughtiest Djinn you have ever seen. This thing is like everything you could ever despise in a mono blue colored deck here, because it's going to get bigger every single time. You know what? You're sitting there with your Considers, filling up the graveyard, counter spells. Every counter, the thing gets bigger. By the time the thing has got like, 8, 9, 10 power, you're going to be able to Fading Hope, some sort of, Marcha Swirling Mist, slip out the back, and push for lethal with this big, huge flyer. And this thing only costs 3. And did I mention it makes everything cost less? So yeah, now your Thirst for Discoveries, all of your like Essence Scatter, if you sideboard those in with, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Everything costs 1 less while it gets bigger, and this thing only costs 3. This thing is like, gosh, what was it, Tempest Djinn? This thing is like Tempest Djinn on steroids. I absolutely love this card. This card is going to be just an absolute menace for as long as it can be. I hope you're ready to ride out the haughty, naughty Djinn, because it's not going anywhere. So that's going to be the list here. Go ahead and leave me a like. It helps out the channel tremendously. I would really appreciate that. Let me know, what do you like about the list? What would you change? What cards would you have? Am I stupid? Whatever. Let me know. And don't forget to answer the question of the day if you have not already. Man, out.